So I've got a new project that I'm going to be working on soon, and I'll be documenting the whole process via time lapse. But if anybody has seen on my YouTube page, there is the Stepcab. It's a little stand-up cabinet that has buttons, and you can play Stepmania on it. And that's essentially what this guy is going to be. It's going to be the replacement for that miniature step cab. And of course it's going to have, the arcade buttons and joysticks as well, so you can play regular games, but it'll be swappable between the two, Stepmania and arcade games. So I'll be documenting the whole process in time-lapse format, just me walking around, messing with it, taking stuff apart, putting stuff in. And it's kind of also like a face reveal. Not that that's like a big deal or anything. I'm not actually anybody important. I've actually distanced myself from my local community for personal reasons. I'm not a celebrity. I don't claim to be, and also just a quick note here. This video is not intended to be any kind of tutorial or guideline on how to do this yourself. This is literally just me working on it, taking stuff apart, putting stuff in. That's it. So this is not like going to be a step-by-step on how to make your own cabinet. That's literally too much work to do. There's too many steps, and it's not productive to upload a video like that. Just every single little teeny weeny thing I do. So yeah, it's just going to be me in a time lapse, just running around with the drill. So yeah, expect more stuff as I progress on this, and you can kind of count this as the before I get to the after. So you can see a good comparison of the two. All right, and with that, I'm going to get started here.
So I'll also be commentating on top of the time-lapse video to kind of explain what I'm doing, not like in full detail, but just to give you an idea of what the process was like as I was working on all this. And I guess I'll first start by saying that my previous statement that this isn't a tutorial on how to do this, it's still accurate because there's just too many variables in different cabinets. So the cabinet I have here is just one of the classic upright cabinets, which I got for a very, very good deal. And while I'm not going to discuss like pricing and everything, it was a fantastic deal, and it already came completely gutted for me. So the stripping process was very short. You see, I'm already like working on casters at this point. We're removing the those janky little metal feet it had, but I was just prepping it for the nice rubber casters that are on there now. So yeah, the casters was one of the things I wanted to do first, since I wanted to be able to move and spin the cabinet around as I worked. So this is just the process of installing the casters on top of or on the bottom of the cabinet there, and there it is. It is mobile. A little cleanup. So that is the monitor being mounted. And that is a two-person job. This is the only time I had a help from a second person. Otherwise, I guess the 90% of the entire cabinet was myself. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting the wood for the panel. So this was the step cab, and I took the monitor away because of all the sawdust. I didn't want to get dusty. But since it's the step cab, I have to actually make by hand the paneling. So that's the old panel right there I just took off. I'm still going to use that one, and it's still going to be functional with the joystick and the buttons and everything, and they'll be hot swappable. I mean, you can just unplug one cable and plug in the other, and then you can go from Stepmania to arcade games in just one cable. So this is the kind of the process of how I was making the paneling for that. There's a lot of little teeny measurements. It was really nerve-wracking because this is one of those situations where if you mess up a cut or you mess up a hole saw cut, it's pretty much over. And though it looks like I'm moving pretty quickly here, this probably took about, oh gosh, maybe 2 hours in total to get those holes in there. I did kind of cut certain spots where I was leaving the frame just to go kind of remeasure and stuff. But so what I'm doing right there, cutting the side, that's actually the channel or the route for the T-molding that goes on the side. That's just the acrylic that will eventually go on top. And just cutting off the ends that I don't need. So I'm cutting acrylic for both of the panels, the Stepmania panel and the arcade joystick panel. So they both have the nice acrylic finish that most people are used to seeing on arcade cabinets, that really shiny, pristine look. And there I go, putting in some of the buttons just to make sure that they sit correctly and they're positioned how I want them to be. Oh my god, this part was so annoying. It's such a tedious part. And that's doing the same thing, but with the acrylic, to make cuts on the acrylic that line up to the paneling. This part was incredibly tedious, and I must have inhaled like so much microplastics at this point. I probably should have worn a face mask or respirator or something, but that's okay. A little cleanup. So this is where I'm actually like putting in the stuff, like making the mounts for the board so they're swappable, and messing with a lot of the internal stuff like the latches. The latches is what allows the entire front jamb to swing out in case there's something that needs to be worked on, or maybe remove the glass to get to the monitor. But a lot of that had to be reworked because of I wanted to make sure that they were swappable, so I had to physically move a lot of those latches and remeasure where they were positioned at. But you can't really see too much here because it is like inside the cabinet, but it was very nightmarish to get those latches moved around. So what I'm doing here is I'm very slowly and carefully routing all the holes for the DDR buttons. This part took so long, and I must have gone through so many cutting wheels at this stage. I know I started with about 20 cutting wheels, and I think I'm down to 2 or 3. It's just so many times the wheel would overheat and just break apart. So I see there that I am now soldering everything. And I take it back. This is the part where I'm working on the internal stuff, the latches and such. And just making sure that everything actually fits, routing some holes again, cutting some of the stuff in the back to make sure the new joysticks I purchased will actually fit in the back. So see, everything's kind of like physically in place. You saw the Stepmania layout was there, but now was the tedious part where I'm actually like cutting away in imperfections in some of the buttons, because it does affect the gameplay if the buttons aren't like completely uniform, especially on the plunger itself. So this is where I'm actually doing the real wiring. For those of you who have sat in on some of my Stepman controller videos, this is essentially the same thing, where I'm just creating long grounds. Like I pull the ground wire from that spool of tangled wires there, but I'm effectively wiring everything for the inputs and the lights as well. So that was also quite a process, and that was maybe took about 2 hours again, just because of like how many buttons there were and like how I had to stretch the wiring across the entire thing. But it looks like I'm finishing up here, at least in the time lapse. Yep, looks like all done. Clean up, vacuum all the sawdust. I think I'm about to put the monitor back in. Yep, there's the monitor. And at this stage, it's basically done. And I'm just wiring the remaining wire and feeding it through the cabinet so it can reach. And there it is. It should be all plugged in. The acrylic's not on there quite yet, but that's not really necessary at this phase of the build. Because what I'm doing now is I'm test playing. And actually, here it is test played. This is with the lights on, of course. And this is before I had a marquee put in. And this is what it looks like with the lights off. Very nice, very clean. Actually very happy the way it turned out. We already had some friends over and we all got to have the inaugural play. And this is what it looks like from the side. You see how the buttons, when they're pressed, it illuminates all of the acrylic siding, which is a very, very nice look as you're playing. So overall, I think this was a very good project. I'm very happy with how this turned out, and it's definitely an upgrade from that miniature cab. But from here on forward, this will be what I'll be streaming Stepmania with, at least in terms of Stepman play. But thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed that.